Okay, thank you everybody for coming. First of all, thanks for participating. It's a Monday morning. We figured that Monday blues are a thing, so we kept it at 10 o'clock instead of 9. And so basically, this is a workshop that we run every year. It's a new theme every year, and so this time we are looking at blockchain and cybersecurity. Briefly speaking, blockchains, as you know, started off in 2008, through a paper that showed up by an anonymous author. Fast forward about 10 or 11 years, today we have lots and lots of companies that do blockchains as a thing. So, for instance, there are a dozen different platform providers and companies building, maybe 100 companies building on top of this platform infrastructure. Going forward, so what has happened is that this technology started off as something that would facilitate global digital payments, but it has evolved considerably into something that is more general purpose. So you can do general purpose computing on this platform. For instance, here is a freelance service that runs on top of this infrastructure. There are games, very popular games, surprisingly popular games that clog the network every now and then, called CryptoKitty. Lots of trading and financial activities now taking place on the blockchain, such as decentralized exchanges and so on. And earlier this year, actually, the number of decentralized applications running on blockchains exceeded over 1 million, probably just at the end of last year. Yeah. So blockchains have been around for some time, but it's been some time before they've been adopted in the mainstream commercial world. And in fact, regulated exchanges started to really show up last year. Not fully regulated, but at least following some sort of a regulated procedure. And concurrent with that last year was this, what we call as a summer of ICOs, where, a lot of companies came up with, ideas, and they were broadly funded worldwide through the use of cryptocurrencies. And, of course, right after that, we started to see lots of venture capital investments in the space and lots of financial activity starting to bloom around this asset class. And really, this is just a chart that is testimony to that. As of 2018, the amount of investment into companies in this infrastructure, totals a few billions. Not all of them are giving great returns, but at least it's the start of a very large kind of decentralized crowdfunding infrastructure. Yeah. Now. Despite this sort of growth, there's criticism, right? And there's concurrent with all this growth, which is that the technology isn't quite ready for this kind of mainstream adoption. And the reason for that, often cited, is scalability challenges. And for instance, the first generation of protocols like Bitcoin and Ethereum basically process roughly 2 to 4 kilobytes per second worth of transaction data. That's what the protocols are able to do. This roughly corresponds to about 10 or to 12 transactions per second. And if you compare that with what's the demand for a payments infrastructure of a global scale, centralized operators often do thousands, if not tens of thousands. Yeah. And so the criticism that's showing up is, can this infrastructure actually scale? And that's a technological question to begin with. At the same time, there are issues around security of this infrastructure. So, for instance, there are some famous incidents that have happened in the last few years where a bug has sort of resulted on a decentralized application, leading to a leakage of about $300 million worth of assets. And the trouble is that this is happening again and again. So, for instance, lots of apps report that at the time of their crowd sale, the networks get clogged. They can't scale, and they somehow have sort of lack of decentralization. It's not very fair anymore, right? And these mistakes are happening again and again, and more scientific literature is now showing up saying that, in fact, the rate of these mistakes is quite high. There have been 34,000 plus out of 1 million contracts that have been found to be vulnerable. So that's roughly 3.4%. And most recently, actually just last month, we've seen live attacks related to kind of what's called as a 51% attack, which is basically a majority of the infrastructure on the blockchain, on a public blockchain, turns out to be double spending for a small period of time. That means violating the rules of the game. So now with all these attacks, security really comes into the kind of limelight, and everybody started to look at it and say, okay, if we are going to build such a large-scale public infrastructure, then how do we get this right? And really that motivates the theme for this workshop. We want to look at both challenges around scaling and security of these underlying platform infrastructure, but also we want to make this very diverse. So we want to hear opinion from not just the technical experts, but also from different participants in the industry, including, for instance, financial institutions, venture capital firms, and other players who look at culture and adoption of this technology at large scale. So here's just a sort of a snapshot of topics that you're going to see today and tomorrow. So we'll definitely talk about privacy, as that's a key feature that people need when they want to build commercial grade applications on blockchains. We'll have talks about this problem of having bugs in decentralized apps or smart contracts, and what can be done to eliminate these class of bugs. We'll have emerging technology talks on trusted computing. So this is a way of providing hardware solutions to privacy and integrity of infrastructure. And a number of talks that talk around the kind of applications and the rethinking of security architectures with the emergence of these platforms. Yeah. We'll also talk about scaling, as I mentioned, because that's one of the key encumbering challenges, probably the one that has received the most mainstream media attention. And also discuss issues relating to adoption, innovation, and collaboration around this space. Yeah. So I'd like to mention that this kind of annual workshop is now sort of co-sponsored with the Crystal Center, along with the Cybersecurity Consortium. And this Crystal Center, I'll just take a minute to tell you about it. It's a new initiative that was set up in August this year. Basically, it's an open collaborative platform funded by various industry partners to bring forward a think tank that can reason about, in a sort of a more scientific way, about the problems that you're seeing in the blockchain space or in the cryptocurrency space more broadly. I list and thank some of the sponsors that have initiated this effort. So there are a small group of companies at this point, but the platform is open for anybody's participation at this point. So this is one of the sort of annual events that we'll be running at least for the next for this year and the next 2 years, and we invite people to sort of stay tuned in onto the webpage of this infrastructure so that we can release more and more information about the events coming up. Cybersecurity Consortium has been around for some time. It's a wonderful initiative. The main goal of that initiative is to bring together industry, academia, and government for engagement. And they have a number of different events happening every year, one of which is this one. They have about 40 companies in the portfolio at this point who have joined the consortium, and we also invite others to participate. And with that, I think I'd like to sort of tell you about our keynote speaker and also the distinguished speaker for the day. This is SOC's, School of Computing's 20th anniversary, and we are very, very delighted to have a wonderful speaker in Dawn. So Dawn Song is a professor at Berkeley. She finished her PhD in 2002 from Berkeley and then went to CMU for a few years and then transitioned over to Berkeley after that. And I think, there's no reason for me to spend much time introducing her because she really needs no introduction. So she has a number of major awards, accomplishments that have been attributed to her. She's a Genius Award winner, the MacArthur Fellow, and a number of different very prestigious awards, including the MIT TR35. Most recently, I think she was also named to be the most influential scholar in computer security, having the most number of citations. So that's just more testimony to what she's done. Also, I think a lot of people may or may not know, she's also a serial entrepreneur in the Bay Area. So she has done a number of startups that have had successful exits, and she's onto a new journey right now, which she's also going to talk to you about. And so with that, I think I basically would like to invite Dawn to present her talk. And could we please give a round of applause for her?